Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you as always for stopping by. Let me start with some macro thoughts. US crude oil futures settled at $45.49 and it's now trading lower. This was yesterday, it was up 1%, but it was all over the place, and I should know because I was short and it really squeezed me. My target is $32 a barrel, and I'd like to think I said it first before everyone else started downgrading their expectations. Put up another chart of crude oil from Bloomberg. I like this tweet from J.S. Blockland. Valuation, anyone? Sub-zero pool is now $6.5 trillion, down from over $12 trillion previously. This is, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. Home thoughts today. My father used to come to London for my half terms when I was at Westminster School. Invariably, he would park himself at Brown's in Green Park, which he liked. And he used to tell me how when he went to school in England, he would only come home once every 2 years. And how one year he was staying with someone who was particularly unpleasant, and not let him out of his room and things like that. Of course, I was fortunate enough to come home at least twice a year and used to love the excitement and the ceremony around my arrival. Mum was a truly brilliant cook, and her food was simply to die for. Her desserts were legendary, and she would be like Mrs. Jellyby. Who is Mrs. Jellyby, you are asking? Mrs. Jellyby was my neighbour in Putney. Her father used to be the chairman of Iraqi Airways in the old days, and Ahmed Jellyby, infamous mathematician and politician, was their nephew. And Mum was like her. One day she said, "Come over for tea," and there was this fantastic tray. It was like Fortnums and Masons and Claridge's combined. And Mum would pull out a string of meals for me when I got home and leave me replete and normally sleepy because you'd obviously been burning the candle at both ends just before you came home. So both my wife and I were just so excited yesterday because the big girls, ladies now, Aisha's 20 and Layla came home, was 19. Layla said she wanted her room back. I had moved in because there is this wonderful breeze that comes straight off the slopes of Mount Kenya into that room. And I missed her, and I liked the idea of occupying her room. Aisha is 20 now, and I said to all my ladies, wife and 3 daughters, I have a full house now. Put up a photograph of Westminster School I took last year, one of the cloisters. One of the things I used to do was sing hymns every morning and walk along those very cloisters I took a photograph of. I like this photograph from Rusty Case, Lake Elementaita. It's a wonderful place. It's derived from the Maasai word muteita, meaning dust place. Elementaita is derived from the Maasai word muteita, a reference to the dry and dusty quality of the area, especially between January and March. The town of Gilgil is located near the lake. In the south to north sequence of Rift Valley lakes, Elementaita is located between Lake Naivasha and Lake Nakuru. The major Nairobi-Nakuru highway runs along the nearby escarpment, affording motorists a spectacular vista towards the lake. At the southern end of the lake lie the Kekopi hot springs, in which the tilapia grahami breed, very popular for bathing. The local Maasai claim that it can cure AIDS. The reed beds nearby are fishing grounds for night herons and pelicans. Lake Elementaita saw its first white settlement when Lord Delamere established Soy Sambu, a 48,000-acre ranch on the western side of the lake. Delamere gifted the land on the other side of the lake to his brother-in-law, the Honourable Galbraith Lowry Egerton Cole, part of whose Kekopi Ranch, where he is buried, is preserved today as the Lake Elementaita Lodge. When I was there last, I was having lunch by the pool, and Lord Delamere's son, who's now passed away, was passing by and invited me to lunch. And we had a lunch buffalo. I don't recommend buffalo. It's though I ate it. This is a photograph of Michel and Hannah riding along the lake shore at Lake Elementaita. In his 100th Wimbledon match, Roger Federer beat Milos Raonic 6-4, 6-2, 7-6. I like this scene from Carlito's Way, I Love Music, the pool scene. Political reflections, well. Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has been indicted. He was guilty of corruption and money laundering and sentenced to almost 10 years in prison. The real gained 1.4% to 320.87. And country's benchmark stock gauge rallied the most in 2 weeks. The risk premium on Brazilian sovereign bonds dropped 3 basis points, 273 basis points, according to JP Morgan Chase. Look, I don't see this decapitation flying at all. And this is a very popular politician. And essentially this sort of very binary approach, which a lot of people are taking, I don't think it's going to work. I think the Brazilians are going to be on the streets in no time at all. And therefore, I'd go limit long puts on the Brazilian real, amongst other things. I'll put up a photograph of Michel Temer, the president of Brazil, and his wife. Another photograph of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. And finally, a photograph of Christ the Redeemer. Because indeed, they'll need prayers now, going by this particular development. This is a list of the Trump officials who have failed to fully disclose their meetings with the Russians. Look, it's a totally bizarre situation, it really is. I mean, I don't know what to say, and I don't know how long Trump can keep it up. Maybe he'll keep it up forever. It's just extraordinary. Edward Luiz in the Financial Times has written a particularly hard-hitting article. Donald Trump's administration is little more than the Trump family plus some disposable retainers. It is unclear where the White House ends and the Trump business empire begins. One reason Mr. Trump took against Qatar may have been that an influential Qatari denied Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, $500 million loan. I think that's the reason. And I think I tweeted it a couple of times. The Gulf state has reported that's the reason why the GCC went so hard on Qatar. I think Jared wanted to teach the emir a lesson. Gulf state has reportedly rejected Mr. Trump's requests in the past. What were we thinking that Mr. Trump suddenly developed strong views on Gulf Arab politics? As the saying goes, follow the money. It is a mistake to read too much into Mr. Trump's actions. They are usually hidden in plain sight, like his Twitter feed, which is extraordinary. This week's revelations about Donald Trump Jr. are a case in point. For the first time since Mr. Trump took office, the word treason has entered the currency. But its connotations are too Machiavellian. People who commit treason against their country are usually seduced by ideology or inducement. Either way, they are aware of the sacred boundary they crossed. What if your family is your country? What if your kin are your religion? To a neutral observer, Mr. Trump Jr.'s emails make clear that he solicited damaging information about Hillary Clinton from the Kremlin. To his father, they show a son's loyalty. To the Russians, they prove that the Trump family was ready to do business. To US prosecutors, it is a smoking gun, evidence of collusion with a foreign power. If you want the king's ear, make friends with his offspring. That is the channel through which China, Saudi Arabia, and others are conducting diplomacy with the Trump administration. That is also how Robert Mueller, the special counsel heading the Russia investigation, can strike at Mr. Trump. What does this mean for America's engagement with the world while Mr. Trump is president? Washington is Bourbon City. For Mr. Trump, no less than Louis XIV, it is l'état, c'est moi. The deeper the probes, the more the Trump family interests will infect every decision. The biggest distortion is US-Russia relations. Last week at the G20 summit, Mr. Trump spent 2 hours and 15 minutes talking to Vladimir Putin. Only Rex Tillerson, US Secretary of State, was present. Fiona Hill, Mr. Trump's only Russian expert, was not in the meeting. Mr. Trump gave Mr. Putin what he wanted. Family now shows up in every field of America's global engagement. Mr. Kushner is Mr. Trump's de facto chief diplomat. His wife is also Mr. Trump's daughter. Ivanka is the face of American soft power. If your goal is to destabilize the US government, now is the time to strike. Whether you're president of Russia, emir of some oil-rich kingdom, or a nihilist working from the inside, Mr. Trump offers an unparalleled opportunity. Trump is America, America is Trump. While he is president, the US Republic is highly vulnerable. And these were the points I was touching on when I wrote my piece in May, Apocalypse Trump. Mr. Trump tweeted, "The White House is functioning perfectly, focused on healthcare, tax cuts, reform, and many other things. I have very little time for watching TV." This is what I mean. Clearly he's watching too much. Summit Holiday Special I-1448 is out. Private Eye. Speaks for itself. Rex Tillerson seems to be hitting his stride as Secretary of State, says Bloomberg. On the occasion of his selection as the Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman is welcomed by the custodian of the two holy mosques. I go back to another piece I wrote in May 2017. How can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Muntazar? I said the OPEC go-go days of Sheikh Yamani, his prayer beads and Delphic pronouncements belong to yesteryear. Mohammed Sanusi Bakindo, the current OPEC Secretary General, is a poor imitation of Yamani and is playing with a set of cards that is stacked against him. Reserves have been depleted from Abuja to Riyadh, from Luanda to Caracas, and in all the oil-producing capitals in the world. So many capitals are fiddling while sitting on a tinderbox and playing with matches. Then I quoted the Deputy Crown Prince, who said, how can I communicate with them, the Iranians, while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Muntazar? And I said, this is deluded thinking when things could go seriously, when things could seriously fall apart, which I still think can happen, particularly in the oil market. And I quoted W.B. Yeats, the second coming, turning and turning in the whitening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere a ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. This is a graph from Holger of US 10-year yields and the Fed funds rate. As you know, I think we're going to see normalization in the yields, and we'll continue to see a sell-off. Bank of Canada raised rates for the first time in 7 years. Have a look at the chart. First group of 7 country to join the US in raising interest rates on Wednesday, fueling speculation that the world's central bankers are heading into a tightening cycle. Raised it to 0.75% from 0.05%. It said future rate moves will be guided by the data, downplaying recent sluggishness in inflation. So let's go to the currency markets. Euro dollar 1.1411, dollar index 95.53, Japanese yen 113 at the figure, Swiss franc 0.9618, the pound 129.40, the Australian dollars had a good day, 0.7726, India rupee 64.425, South Korean won 1136.09, Brazilian real 320.87, Egyptian pound 17.9197, and the rand had a great day yesterday and it's back at 13.1855, back in the range. Dollar index, let me put up a 1-year chart, and yesterday I wrote that the dollar continues to sink and is the Trump shock absorber. Lower still, 93.50 is my target. Euro dollar, my target is 117.50. We backed up a little bit, we're at 114.08 at the moment. But I think it's, we're waiting for Draghi, and then I think we'll go up to 117.50 in the next few weeks. UK unemployment rate falls to a new 42-year low of 4.5%, but wage growth was disappointing. Real earnings in Britain falling at their fastest pace in 3 years. Gold, last time I had a look, 12.23 trading, nothing happening there. I think we're just trading to the downside. Sub-Saharan Africa, I like this quote from an article in the FT about China in Africa. It is in Africa where China has started to project itself as a responsible great power. South African oil shares up 4.45% year to date. Transnet said on Wednesday it had suspended senior officials after external auditors flagged reportable irregularities to their regulatory body. That comes a day after Eskom said its auditors have raised similar issues with the independent regulatory boards of auditors, highlighting growing governance concerns in South Africa's state-run companies. And this is something that Moody's cited as well, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Dollar versus rand, as I said, big rebound yesterday, last trading 13.1855. Egyptian pound, as I said, I'm bullish about that. Buy 1-year bills, take the FX exposure, we're at 17.9197. Nigerian vice president back home after London visit of ailing president. A brief, unexplained visit to President Buhari, who's on sick leave in London. Fueled speculation over Buhari's illness. Osinbajo spokesman did not give a reason for the visit, declined to comment when asked. Vice President is now back in Abuja from London, will be presiding over Wednesday's regular cabinet meeting. Some Nigerians took poorly to the news of Osinbajo's visit. The worst skeptics of Buhari's government never imagined this level of rudderless adrift disaster we have in our hands today. Over the weekend, in my piece, I said over Nigeria, which has entered a Yaradua deja vu wormhole. The authorities continue to fight the FX markets. What we know is that the day of reckoning cannot be sidestepped. David Pilling, who writes in the FT and very well, has written an article, Nigeria has let a crisis go to waste. The term dead cat bounce derives from the fact that even a dead cat will bounce if it falls from a great height. If you imagine a dead cat soaked in crude oil and dropped from a 50-story building, you will get a rough picture of how Nigeria's economy is performing these days. Expected to grow 2.5% this year after contracting 1.6% in 2016, the population is also growing at 2.5%, so in per capita terms, things are going nowhere. Nigerian oil shares up 22.72% this year, that's been going somewhere. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index up 20.46% year to date. Very interesting, hard-hitting article in Bloomberg, headlined less than a month before Kenyans are due to go to the polls. Electoral authorities are behind on everything. From printing ballot papers to finalizing a voter list that risks a disputed outcome and unrest a decade after post-election violence engulfed the East African nation. The IEBC says the vote will take place August the 8th. There has been a court appeal over the ballot papers, and the electronic system to transmit results is still being tested, raising the possibility that the election may be delayed or be disrupted. President Kenyatta is attempting to secure a second term by seeing off a challenge from former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who's warned of possible violence if the vote is seen as rigged. The electoral body is blind to the grave consequences of not getting it right this time, said Dungu Wainana, Executive Director of the International Center for Policy and Conflict in Nairobi. The IEBC has become the biggest danger to the stability of this country. Kenyans should start preparing themselves for any eventuality. Oh dear. Recent opinion polls show neither Kenyatta nor Odinga are likely to win at least 50% of the ballots cast, raising the prospect of a runoff vote. Last week, the High Court ruled in favour of an opposition application to cancel a contract awarded to Dubai-based Al Ghurair Printing and Publishing Limited to print presidential ballot papers. The IEBC, which signed the contract last month, even after a court ruled in February that a previous award to the company was illegal, appealed the ruling on Monday. The buck stops with the IEBC to convince Kenyans that they're prepared to hold credible elections. This is Dismas Makua, a political analyst at Trintari. They keep appealing this case, creating a perception that they are favouring one side. While the electoral body is ready to hold the vote, now listen to this, it's still working to protect vulnerabilities in its electronic system that will transmit results from polling stations to local constituency counting centres and then to the main centre in Nairobi. Akombe, as a member of the IEBC, said by phone. It will conduct more tests starting on July the 21st. The system could be subject to interference because it runs over a network the IEBC doesn't control, Akombe said. There is a vulnerability we're trying to protect, but there is nowhere in the world where this system is foolproof. If the electronic system fails, the IEBC will be forced to revert to manual transmission, which is not our ideal situation, but is provided for in the law. The IEBC resorted to a manual system to verify voters' identities in 2013 after biometric machinery failed, a move the opposition cited as evidence for their claim of vote rigging. While laws enacted in 2016 would make vote rigging more complicated, extensive electoral irregularities cannot be ruled out, according to Robert Besseling, director at Johannesburg-based Risk Analysts Africa. The election result can still be manipulated at the polling station and at constituency level, he said in an emailed note. Tension between the opposition IEBC, executive and judiciary doesn't bode well for the outcome, Salim said by phone. It's definite that the outcome will be challenged by both Jubilee and the opposition coalition. The reason I read that out in full is because I'm now going to read you a very short sentence that I wrote on the 3rd of July. I said, what the economy needs is a transparent process, a first round result, and a gracious loser. That's the ask. We're hosting the IAAF World Under-18 Championships. Come cheer and support Team Kenya. The stadium has never looked that good. Britain had a huge day yesterday, up large. It's now up 58% year to date. And yesterday traded over 5% of the shares. Nairobi all shares up 14.41% this year. It was up 0.24% yesterday. NSE 20 closed at a one-year high. That's up 14.02% year to date. We hereby clarify that Uchumi Supermarkets PLC, no deal has been signed as yet as indicated by some media outlets. This is Julius Kiptich. And then we've received the public announcement, that's on Rich Wrap-Up's clarification on a potential investor. We refer to the information circulating through the news channels on the ongoing engagements of the Board of Directors of Uchumi Supermarkets PLC with the strategic investor. We hereby clarify that Uchumi Supermarkets PLC has been pursuing a strategic investor and the talks are ongoing. However, no deal has been signed yet, as indicated by some social media outlets. EABL has launched the construction of its 15 billion shilling plant, saying it should be up and running in 18 months. WPP Scran Group traded heavily yesterday, closed up 1.2%. and at a 2017 high. It's up 13.57% year to date. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I apologize for our feed being down, but we're back up and running. We're reaching the server. Quite a bit of drama, of course, lots of different stakeholders, no one getting on top of it. Eventually they did, and for that I'm grateful. Once again, thank you.